Well, as we're sitting down to record this episode of the King's Hall, we are coming into conference season here in Ogden. We're about a week away from heading into our conference. By the time this episode comes out, that will be in the past. And so, of course, I am contractually obligated as the president of New Christendom Press to begin inviting you to the 2026 New Christendom Press Conference, which we hope you'll join us for here in Ogden, Utah. But that said, we needed to sit down and record this episode of the King's Hall, and we thought to ourselves, what better way to have a great time and a fun conversation than to open up Twitter and ask everybody, what questions do you have for us? So that's exactly what we did. I posted on Twitter and Facebook just so we could get the boomer representatives, not missing out on them. And we asked, what questions do you guys have for us? In this episode of the King's Hall, we're going to be taking up as many of those questions as we can. This is not rehearsed. We didn't pick these ahead of time. We're literally going to go through the tweets and through the Facebook responses and pick what we find to be the most interesting questions and see what we make of them. So thanks for listening. Welcome to this episode of the King's Hall. And the King's Hall podcast exists to make self-ruled men who rule well and win the world.
Well, welcome to this episode of the King's Hall podcast. You saw an excellent intro from our illustrious king, Brian Sauvé. Thank you for joining us today for this Q&A. Thank you for asking the question on Twitter. Nobody would have responded my tweets, so I appreciate that. And we're also joined today with Timu Eric Kahn, Mr. Ben Garrett.
Yay.
Welcome back. I was actually saying that we should, whenever Eric's not here, we should call the real Eric Kahn the Wish App Eric Kahn and call Ben the real Eric Kahn Ben Garrett.
Yeah.
And just see how deep we can get in terms of layers to this joke.
I'm trying to, like, Eric is really good at impressions.
Yeah,
and I feel like I should honor him by doing an impression of him.
Yeah, why don't you do that for us?
But maybe like, okay, so here's the scene.
Yeah.
Right? We all walk in, very serious, like,
We're really setting this up.
Yeah, very serious business thing or like church thing that we need to figure out. All right, so Eric walks into that. Hey, what time are we going golfing today? By the way,
wait, Eric's back early from his vacation?
Eric, is that you?
Oh, no, that was Ben. That's crazy.
You're welcome for
Dang,
that.
that was wild.
Listeners, you're welcome.
That's
wild. The best that I can do. No,
All
happy
right,
to be
so
here.
Let's jump
get
into this.
into
I'm not sure if I'm tracking where this humor is going.
Let's dive in
that's,
head
I
first.
just don't understand.
I'm diving in. I'm going deep.
In over my head, I want to be.
All right. So we've had a few questions surrounding this issue. Actually, I received an email just a couple of days ago about this as well. Yeah. There seems to be a pattern within the Reformed camp of unreasonable fathers as far as courting daughters or dating their daughters is concerned. It almost seems like is it a Laban sort of situation with fathers to where they're putting unreasonable expectations of suitors for their daughters? That wasn't really formatted as a question, even though I spoke like it was a question. So do you guys see this at all in your experience where there could be a temptation or have actually seen it personally in counseling or in giving advice where there seems to be fathers that are putting unrealistic expectations onto suitors for their daughters? Have you guys seen that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely seen it. We've not just seen it personally, and we have seen it personally. I've seen this in the net of New Christendom Press because we do a lot of, we've done several episodes on courtship and dating. We've done several singles mixers. We've been involved in singles mixers with Joel Webbin and Right Response. And so we get lots of correspondence from people asking about this on the personal level. Like, my son was, in the singles mixer and this is what happened. Or I, got involved with a young woman and this is what happened. And a couple through lines that I have seen are in I'll give you one and then kick it over to you guys maybe for more of them. One of them is I've noticed that with young suitors, when the woman and the man are both like, let's say 18 to 24, where they're looking for the level of maturity in a man and proven maturity that can only exist in a man who's not only older, but has been married for 10 years. So they're like grilling the man and going through and expecting them to be as ready for marriage as someone who's been married for 10, 15 years. And the reality is it's not possible. It's like the trope of people who, they go to apply for an entry level position and one of the job requirements is 5 years of experience in the field. So I want to caution fathers, when you're evaluating a man, make sure that you're actually being reasonable and think about the golden rule. Treat that young man the way you would have wanted to be treated. Like, is he a Christian man? Can he provide, is there a good connection? Like, do they enjoy each other's company? Is he not involved in any disqualifying sins? Like, he's not hooked on pornography, or he's not a big fornicator, or, if he can go through and say, no, I'm biblically qualified for marriage, then don't add on to that layers of like, well, he's got to make $100,000 a year. He's got to have the equivalent of a 15-year-old career. And he's got to have all this experience in these things that he just won't until he does them. So that's one thing I've noticed. Have you guys seen anything else?
Well, I have seen, I received an email from a listener, and he gave a couple of examples of how he's experienced this. Now, when you go to a singles mixer at a conference, you're getting people from all over the country, right, that are attending this. And one of the examples he gave was that a father would only allow this man to court his daughter if he actually moved across the country to live in his hometown to even court his daughter.
Interesting.
So that's just an example of something that's completely unrealistic. Now, there are other things like theological distinctives. So like there was another example where it was a Reformed Baptist gentleman, and there was a young Presbyterian man that wanted to date his daughter, and he said, you may not court her unless you change your theology and will not baptize my grandchildren as infants. Now, so there has to be some sort of line in there between convictions that are realistic and unrealistic. I don't know. What do you guys think about that as far as like baptism?
Man, that's a tough one. It would be on the list, but when I'm thinking of, okay, my daughters aren't old enough for this yet, I would be thinking of evaluating a man in the total package. So there would be situations where one data point or a cluster of data points about him, his character, his fruitfulness, whatever, might sway me to weigh that against maybe something that would be in my con list. Like, let's say he was an Anglican instead of a Presbyterian, or he was, something else. And I would just need to weigh. They're so individual that it's very difficult to just make one checklist. So I could see it being one where it would be a yes, like my daughter has been trained from her youth in the doctrine and system of the church that I pastor or that we're at, and we're fully convinced of it, and so is she. And so I'm not going to tempt her to go violate her conscience or to go start dating outside of our tradition.
Yeah, and the reason I ask it in that way is it's not a black or white question, like a yes or no. It's just interesting to see how you'd think through something like that.
Yeah,
now,
totally.
A different example was that there was a gentleman that required this young man to sign the Antioch Declaration in order to actually. Why is everybody laughing?
Well, that's just gay.
This wasn't a joke. This was actually serious. Like, sign the Antioch Declaration in order to actually court my daughter.
Okay,
was the example.
I would not encourage anybody to make the Antioch Declaration a litmus test for courtship.
I'll tell you what.
Put it that way.
If you're a young man, and the father of a woman that you want to court is doing these things, just walk away.
Yeah,
like it's actually that simple. He's just alienating good candidates for his daughter. He's not loving her. So literally just show him the consequences of his folly and walk away. That's the same with the baptism thing. Like, it's not binary, but if a father is making it binary, pick someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, save yourself the trouble, honestly.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting test. Asking some of these questions around courtship is really interesting because it's actually similar to something I learned early on in my career before I was a pastor and I was interviewing for different jobs. Is something that you don't realize is that when you're a young man and you're looking to court this young lady, it's just like finding a job. You're getting interviewed for a position, and you think that you're coming like hat in hand, like a pauper, a beggar, just hoping for the opportunity. That's actually not what's going on. You're interviewing the interviewer as well, because you're going to be marrying into this family as well. So it's really giving you a lot of data as to what sort of woman you're going to be marrying potentially, and what sort of family you're going to be marrying into. So all of these things, while it's difficult to have like a checkbox like the fathers seem to have in some of these situations, to where it's, if you're a Presbyterian, if you don't sign the Antioch Declaration, like these checkboxes, you don't have to have necessarily those same, you don't have to have checkboxes that are automatically yes or no's on some of these tertiary issues. But it is really helpful to go in and to paint a better picture of what sort of woman and family you're going to be marrying into. So it's a test on both accounts. So one of the things I would encourage young men to do as they're looking for a wife is to actually have that mindset that you're interviewing the family as well. You're interviewing the father. And so, these are red flags.
Yeah, because like if it's true that your wife is not your mission in life, and it is true, but then if you're willing to compromise on these, like for example, if a father is like, you can only court my daughter if you become a Baptist, and you're actually willing to succumb to that, you've actually proven yourself to be less than honorable, because you're being tossed around by your more base affections and sexual desires. Now, you want to pursue those sexual desires in a godly way, and that's good. But if you're willing to forego your convictions on covenant theology, then you're not really a man of conviction anyway. Same with the Antioch Declaration. Whether you signed it and they don't want you to, or you didn't sign it and they do want you to, is beside the point. If you're willing to just sign something that is so divisive and that really does represent two polarizing views of how we should look at history and its interaction with the church, all because you want to court some girl that you have no guarantee of marrying whatsoever, that means that you actually need to have a more rigorous idea of what your mission in life is to begin with.
Absolutely.
And so that, then you can come in with having some cards in the conversation and saying like, I actually don't need you. Like, I don't need you, potential father-in-law. And so if you're going to be a butthole, then I'm just going to walk away. And I mean,
do we have to beep that out? Like, what is
that the technical term?
That is the technical term.
I think that
actually,
was
the technical term is something else.
I think it would be licit.
Yeah.
To hypothetically say someone could be acting like that.
Like that thing.
Like
that
the thing
part
you
of the
said.
body.
Like that anatomical reference.
Yeah. Totally.
Excellent.
Will you have enough to retire? Most people haven't mastered their strategies for retirement, tax efficiency, or the next generation. Joe Garrisi and his team from Backwards Planning Financial have been making a meaningful impact for families and businesses for almost 15 years. He can help your family make corrections to give you financial confidence for the future. Joe helped me use tax-efficient strategies and insurance products to put my goals on track for success. Visit backwardsplanningfinancial.com, that's backwardsplanningfinancial.com, or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe for financial confidence.
Strong men make stronger families. Stronger families build stronger churches. And stronger churches build stronger communities. In a world that preaches comfort and weakness, Mount Athos Performance calls you to rise. They're not just selling protein and supplements, they're reclaiming a culture of faith, family, and lasting strength. They don't offer quick fixes, they forge real men. With pure ingredients from their family farm and a mission rooted in Christian excellence, they're building a new standard. Do you want to be chiseled like a Greek god? Visit athosperform.com and use code NCP20 for 20% off your next order.
Most people don't know this, but in 1776, private American citizens outfitted battleships to fight British tyranny. They didn't wait for permission, they just acted. Armored Republic honors that legacy. They make steel core body armor and tactical gear for the responsible, law-abiding citizen. Because when tyranny rises, readiness matters. And hey, every product is made right here in the US. So be ready, be armored, be free. Visit armoredrepublic.com or text JOIN to 88027. That's armoredrepublic.com or text JOIN, JOIN, to 88027.
Attention business owners. Proverbs tells us, in the multitude of counselors there is victory. At KeepWise Partners, they aim to apply this principle to your business as you work to build Christendom in all your labors. Running a small business is challenging, but you don't have to go it alone. KeepWise Partners offers expert bookkeeping services with the care and integrity you'd expect from a partner who shares your values. And to take it a step further, their advisory services bring invaluable insights to you as you aim to meet your business goals. Here at New Christendom Press, we've partnered with KeepWise for all our bookkeeping needs and have greatly benefited from all their assistance. Visit keepwisepartners.com or call Derrick Taylor at 781-680-8000 to schedule a free consultation. KeepWise Partners, bringing finance and accounting excellence to the way you build your business.
Are you ready to step back in time and experience the thrill of hunting and shooting the way it used to be? At muzzleloaders.com, they've got everything you need to embrace the heritage of black powder shooting. From traditional flintlocks and percussion rifles to cutting-edge inline muzzleloaders, they carry the top brands and accessories to help you get started. Whether you are a seasoned black powder enthusiast or just starting out, they're here to help every step of the way. And here's an exclusive deal just for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order when you use the coupon code KINGSHALL at checkout. That's Kings Hall, all caps, one word, for 10% off. With fast shipping, unbeatable customer service, and expert advice, muzzleloaders.com is your one-stop shop for all things muzzle loading. Visit them today at muzzle-loaders.com. That's muzzle-loaders.com and rediscover the tradition.
New question? Ready?
Yeah,
okay,
new question.
I've got one that I think is interesting. Says, can you give a hypothetical yet concrete example of how to put no enemies on the right into practice when bad actors demand your compliance? So we're talking about, so that I can define some of these terms for people that aren't familiar with them, we're talking about what's typically called struggle sessions. We're talking about no enemies on the right is the idea that in terms of public discourse and political coalition, that we want to avoid, insofar as it's practically possible, to infight amongst the right and even publicly countersignal people who would maybe say something that is further right on an issue than you would. Basically, it's saying we should do what the left does, in a sense, because the left, you know, they will use elements like AOC or Nancy Pelosi, who are a little bit more radical Green New Deal type stuff that the Democrat Party doesn't actually have an intention of passing, but they will use that radical fringe to push the window of consensus leftward, and then they'll actually pass something that is...
They don't gatekeep their own people.
They don't gatekeep their own people.
Yeah.
So what would a concrete example look like when a bad actor demands your compliance in struggle sessioning someone over a right-wing view? I have a couple thoughts. I don't know if you have some thoughts.
No, go for it.
So one of the thoughts, like to frame the Christian ethics of the conversation, is that no enemies on the right is a tactical and strategic principle, which means that it genuinely must be applied with wisdom rather than an absolute rule. It doesn't mean that any time somebody says they are on the right, or that they say something and they genuinely are on the right, that you have a moral obligation rooted in the 10 Commandments to not ever disagree with them, and if you do disagree, to never do it publicly. It's a tactical and strategic question in principle, not an absolute ethical moral guideline from Sinai, right? So when I'm thinking about this question, there are situations where I would quite gladly disagree with somebody on the right and even do so publicly, or someone allegedly on the right, et cetera. That's my first kind of guideline of to avoid the ham-fisted straw man presentation of what no enemies on the right might look like as a tactic. People are going to say, well, does that mean, if Jesus has enemies on the right, then you have to have enemies on the right as well? And I would say, yeah, that's true. And that's also not, at least if I'm appealing to this principle, what I would mean by it.
So you're saying, like,
guideline.
when the rule says no enemies on the right, the word enemies there is doing a lot of kind of nuanced heavy lifting, where they may actually be an enemy on a particular issue, which is to say you disagree.
You disagree with them. You think they're counterproductive.
That doesn't mean you have to make them into a perceived enemy to the public.
Yeah, and there's a few, that's definitely true. And there's a few practical elements to this as well. For example, when I'm weighing this, some of this won't apply to everybody, but when I'm weighing the question, am I going to take my public platform, which has potentially routinely reaches hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, sometimes millions of people. Am I going to, Ben's like, wow.
Sometimes billions.
Never billions. Everyone's saying it. No. I am strategically thinking, if there's something even on the right that I disagree with, am I going to help it more than discourage it by pointing a flashlight on it? And some of the time my calculus is I'm going to be counterproductive to even my own end of attempting to lead people into truth, goodness, and beauty on the right, by even making a big deal out of this. Like, if some anon on Twitter says something that I disagree with, for example, I help him by quote tweeting it. Yeah. I don't hurt him. No matter how much I take him down, I've actually helped him quite a bit by quote tweeting him. So I have tried to discipline myself about that on one level. But also, we need to make a distinction between enemies and people with whom we have just disagreements.
There's also,
that's a big important,
there's a distinction to make in the nature of the disagreement. So if you are, and there's also individual conscience that comes into play. Like if you are scrolling Twitter and you have a platform and you see something from someone that would be in your camp that you disagree with, what is the nature of the disagreement? Is it a tactical disagreement?
Yeah.
Is it a disagreement on a perspective of something? Is it a tertiary theological disagreement, or is it a moral disagreement?
Right.
Where you believe that if that person is living out that idea, they're actually committing a moral failure. Okay, well then you could say, like, maybe you have an obligation to approach that brother and say, hey, I think this is wrong. That would be done privately in accordance with Matthew 18. Let's say it's one of the other disagreements, but you feel very strongly about it. Well, if it's a conscience issue, I think that there's a way to address it that doesn't tank the pushing of the plow or the pushing of the Overton window to the right. Again, privately is a really good way to do that.
Yeah.
And then if it's not a conscience issue, if you're like, I disagree with that, but I actually don't care that much for whatever reason, you should just move on.
Yeah.
And let the lying dog lie.
You go ahead, Dan.
You know what's interesting, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, just thinking through some of the categories, Ben, that you laid out with, theological, moral, personal convictions, strategic disagreements. It appears to me that some of the biggest disagreements, particularly around race, the Antioch Declaration, some of the stuff with Will Spencer that just cropped up, it'll be old news by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a behind the scenes motivation is actually a strategic disagreement, but it's being painted as a moral and theological disagreement to the public. Would you guys say that's true? Because if it is, that means that it's actually quite difficult on social media to understand where the disagreements lie with some of these people on the right.
Yeah.
Do you think that's accurate?
I was actually going to say part of the difficulty with this question is that the hypothetical has to be limited to what you can control. And you run into a lot of difficulties when you have what I think you're saying is true, where strategic and tertiary things are being presented as moral failures by those that disagree. You now have an obligation to defend your name. You have to defend your honor. And so now you've gotten pulled in to a disagreement that takes place on the right that everyone can see, but it's not because you wanted to. So in the hypothetical, if you were the one who was like the aggressor, you could go to that person privately, you could work it out privately, you could do all these things. But when you're the one who's the victim, who's not the aggressor, you might be put in a position where you have to, because you're before God, defend your good name to a group of people with a topic and an issue that you had no intention whatsoever of discussing in the public,
giving a public
in the
opinion
public
on,
sphere,
or
like
position on,
because you just, for whatever reason, you're like, I don't care to give a public opinion on that.
That's actually a really good point. Like most of the time when I'm thinking of no enemies on the right, one of the biggest, and I'm realizing it as you said this, one of the most common ways that I exercise this principle is actually simply in choosing which topics I feel equipped.
Yeah.
I believe myself equipped to speak on. And when someone, let's say there's an issue where someone either presents themselves or they genuinely are an expert or a subject matter expert, or that it's like they know a lot about a topic and they speak to it. And maybe 2 or 3 things that they say out of 15 propositions strike me as wrong. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd agree with that. But then as I evaluate it, I think to myself, do I know a lot about this topic? Am I overextending principles from other topics I do know and assuming that they apply equally here, or that my knowledge is adequate to address this issue? So most of the time for me, it's actually not in terms of volume. I'm not no enemies on the right thinking avoiding struggle sessions, and I would say that too. But I'm more often saying there's someone on the right, they said a bunch of stuff, they are presenting themselves maybe as a subject matter expert. Mm-hmm. I was neutral on 2 of the things they said. I don't know if I agreed with 3 of them. I agreed with 8 of them. Do I need to say something? 99 out of 100 times, my answer, this is my calculus, again, it's tactical, is no.
Yeah.
What am I helping the cause of the Christian right by engaging in that? Probably not. Do I know everything about everything? No, I definitely don't. Maybe that triggers going and looking into it and even asking them privately or talking to them about it. Give a concrete example, and then maybe we move on. Let's say Tanner Cartwright. You guys know Tanner Cartwright? Yeah. Chops, magnificent chops. He's like a very right-wing sort of dude out in I think he's at Reformation Church with Jerry Doris. If I get this wrong, sorry.
Is that the Kentucky guy?
Yeah. I met him. Lexi and I went out there for one of their conferences a while ago, or like a camp they did, and it was a great group of people. So Tanner, when he pops up on my timeline, it's often like engaging in the same sort of stuff all of us do, political, cultural stuff. Let's say that Tanner says something, and it's like he's got the Elijah turned to 11, and he is engaging in public mockery. And it's the type of public mockery of some issue where genuinely it is a question of tactics and wisdom of whether I would say it that way or whatever. And I do this all the time, and people disagree with me and say, Brian, I agree with the substance of what you said, but you said it way too abrasively. You said it you were a jerk, whatever. And before God, I didn't think I was being a jerk. I thought I was engaging in licit, tactical public mockery of the Elijah sort. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say Tanner says something and 100,000 people are mad at him. And 10% of the people who are mad at him are people on our team somewhere. They're like, he went too far. Even for our camp, Tanner Cartwright, he went too far. Brian, denounce him. And they start, and some movement starts where it's like, let's all denounce Tanner Cartwright for his thing. Under very few circumstances would I consider doing that. I would ignore it. And even if I looked at it, and I can think of specific examples where this has happened, where people have done stuff that I genuinely looked at and said, I wouldn't have done that. I actually think that was maybe borderline crass. That was maybe borderline too far. It was trying to be too edgy. I don't know. That would hurt. That would bother my conscience to talk that way. And most of the time I don't say anything.
Are you talking about wish.com, Eric Kahn, or TeamuEric.com right now? It's hard to tell them apart sometimes.
The most concrete example, ironically, is the NSA ads with the middle finger.
Oh, yeah.
I never would have done that. I think, and now see, I'm even publicly talking about it. Hopefully just by way of illustration.
Yeah, and we can just drop it there.
That was a concrete example where I think you could go back. I don't think I said anything about it at the time. A lot of people were trying to cancel Canon over it or NSA over it. And I was like, I wouldn't have done that. I disagree. I get their justification. I think it was not the right way of doing it.
But this doesn't have to become.
But I'm not going to help.
Yeah.
By coming out and here's the other thing. It is so tempting to make your whole personality. The second you set yourself up as like the in the camp discernment minister?
Here's the thing.
It's such a slippery slope.
No one likes the hall monitor. And when like those people who do that as the in the camp discernment guy, they're just acting like, the guy at Civil Air Patrol who's a sophomore in high school, but who's an officer at weekend Civil Air Patrol. And he just loves screaming at the middle schoolers. Or the guy in class who is good for nothing else than to be a hall monitor. So the teachers make him a hall monitor. And literally everyone hates him because he thinks that now he's going on a power trip and now he gets to lord it over people. Yeah. That's what you're doing. This is how struggle sessions become wicked, wicked things. Mm-hmm. To your point about only, using your level of competency in an issue to kind of help be a guidepost for whether or not you engage. So a struggle session, let's say that the one who is being the accuser in the struggle session is uninformed on the topic that he wants to have the struggle session about. Okay. Now, what quickly will happen is he'll realize how uninformed he is on the topic, and he'll shift gears completely and turn it into a gospel issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this is the trope of like, well, I'm Kuyperian and I'm Van Tillian, so therefore I know everything. And I'm able to speak competently to everything.
And they psychologize and pathologize everything.
No, you're not. What you're doing is shifting the goalpost, and you're turning tertiary things, or even like quaternary things, into things that now determine whether or not someone is in the kingdom of heaven.
And yeah, go ahead.
And then, I was just going to say the second thing is, let's say the accused is the one that's uninformed. So the accuser is very informed on a topic, and he's now bringing in this accused person who's adjacently related to the topic to answer for it. But he's actually uninformed. Now you are forcing him via public shame and threat to make a claim that he will be obligated to answer for before God on the final judgment day.
Yeah.
You're doing something wicked in both situations. You're either anathematizing someone needlessly because you don't understand the topic in question, or you are forcing someone to give their name to something that they haven't accurately informed themselves on, and they're going to have to answer for every idle word that's spoken.
Yeah, yeah. No, good points. I think this relates to another question maybe we can bridge into. It does, and it might be old news by the time this comes out. It did relate to Will Spencer's article on Christ overall. There were two really controversial aspects of the article that I could discern. One of them was Spencer's claim that like right-wing ideologies that are popularizing or gaining ascendance or in the zeitgeist right now are more dangerous than internet pornography or more pernicious. And the other was this, basically his presentation of a hypothetical where you're going into a church member interview, and as a pastor, you should be asking the question of someone like, do you believe there's a cabal of Jews running the world? And the best answer allegedly, that Spencer put forward was like, what do you even mean? I don't even know what you're talking about. Like he had never even thought about it. And then basically the implication was that anybody who said something like, well, hang on a minute. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by cabal? What do you mean by Jew? Do you mean every individual Jew? Do you mean like there are prominent Jews? Do you mean that a besetting sin of Jews historically or currently is X, Y, or Z? If anybody kind of gets more into that granular detail where it shows that they're at least a part of this conversation about subversion and cultural subversion and what it has to do with race and what it has to do with Jewishness and Bolshevism and some of these historic questions and cultural and political questions. And so people asked us, can you address that? What do you think about a church not admitting a potential member with contrary views on like the post-war consensus or some of these things? And to me, this relates to the struggle session question in a lot of ways. Because I've found so often that what's happening in a lot of these arguments is that there's a subtle form of question begging that the person is engaging in who is scoffing at the idea at all that someone might conclude some historically non-centrist or non-majority opinion in even maybe a very minority position on some historical event or political subversion or something like that. And the question begging is that they must be wrong on those things. Because so often it's like the assumption of the listener is that's such an absurd question on the face of it that only a complete bitter nincompoop who's been just taken in by the worst straw man versions of fatherless, race baiting, critical theorists, woke right, et cetera, only those sorts of people would hear that question and go like, hang on, there's nuance to that, or here's my position or opinion. And I haven't found that to be the case. Amongst the new Christian right, I'm thinking of like Stephen Wolfe, C.J. Engel, Andrew Isker, us, a lot of guys who are involved in this conversation that are often smeared as woke right or whatever. Most of us, if you said, what do you think about Nick Fuentes and his statement of X, Y, and Z? Most of us would be like, well, A, do you think that that's what we were talking about? Do you think we were like that in that group, or agree with him, or like that's where I thought about this for the first time? Well, it's like, no, that's not the source. We're not that guy. They jump to straw men because of straw men.
Never listened to
we never listened to Nick Fuentes. First of all, someone used a phrase and I had to Google it, and it had something to do with Nick Fuentes, and that's how little I know about Nick Fuentes. Was that. But there's a lot of the time struggle sessioning is a tactical play, and one of the tactics is the circular argument or the begging the question, where they're basically framing a position from the outset as absurd. And then concluding that it's sinful and that it also involves all these pathologized emotional kind of undercurrents or motives. And I've just found that most of the time it is so much more complicated than that when you get into the issues that people are trying to struggle session about. An example would be that a guy just recently, said that I was engaged in critical race theory for just quite blandly noting the historic involvement of certain elite Jews in the pornography and smut industries, which is just beyond question. Like in the 70s and 80s, the vast majority of the porn industry were run by several prominent Jewish elites. We know this. It's just historical fact. It doesn't follow that every single individual Jew in America was involved, et cetera. Like there's a bunch of stuff it doesn't entail.
And it shows like that you're kind of poking something in the eye, because if you were to do the same tweet, but exchange all of the quotes from prominent Jews or examples of prominent Jews with a prominent feminist at the time who were promoting porn, no one would accuse you of misogyny. And no one in our camp would accuse you of misogyny.
Or even more so if I had said a besetting sin of whites in the West has been apostasy. No one
would accuse you of racism.
Almost nobody would run to the contrary statistics and say, oh, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, but actually whites have also been a bulwark in preserving Christian faithfulness. And actually the most conservative practice of Christianity in the West has been these European and Anglo-Protestant groups. I'd be like, no one would do that. They would just go, that's right, because you're critiquing your own kind of camp. And that's all, and you're basically doing the fire extinguisher flood thing, where it's like the culture already is totally down with any anti-white sentiment. So if you say something that fits even broadly with anti-white sentiment, just see Jeremy Carl's book, The Unnecessary, or the Unprotected Class. I mixed it up with
class.
I was mixing it with Buchanan's Churchill book, The Unnecessary War. So basically, like in conclusion, to my own question that I asked in the answer, and you guys are welcome, is that I thought Will Spencer was pretty off on that, and that he was basically asking clergymen to take on authority that Christ did not give them, and that he was making a number of uncharitable assumptions that even flirted with question begging with respect to some of the historical, political, social, cultural, religious, racial questions at the heart of his thesis. He was kind of assuming from the outset, and he hand waved it like, there's mountains of evidence. Read this, this, it's all clear. The reality is a lot of these things are not so clear. And there is huge historical debate. And that actually, like you
both
can't
within and without the church.
Both both within and without church, good actors and bad actors.
The other thing too is that like whether you're pastoring someone who is a member or someone who's suing for membership, you can't be in the business of proactive punishment for potential sins. And you have to be in the business of addressing punitively the sins that you actually see in people or that they confess to. So, in a membership interview, you may ask like, hey, just pastorally, do you struggle with anything in particular that you need counseling for, that you want accountability as you walk in repentance, that you want prayer for? But what you can't do is like, you seem like the type of guy that beats your wife. And so therefore I'm going to treat you as one that beats your wife. What you can't do is ask the question like, hey, do you like the NFL? Yeah, I love the NFL. Oh, so you must be a Sabbath breaker. You hate God.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. You're not allowed. That's not something that God has given the church the authority. You're actually dipping your toe pretty deep into a Roman Catholic error of having juridical oversight over everyone's life.
Like everything.
Like down to the minutia.
If you were, like hypothetically, let's say that you were in a community of people, the membership is drawing from the broader community where they have this besetting sin. And let's say, hypothetically, that the besetting sin of the white community you're in is that they love lynching minorities in a murderous way. They just love it. Like it's the besetting sin of their surrounding area. Now, someone's suing for membership in that situation. You would be perfectly pastorally within your rights to say, what do you think about murdering ethnic minorities?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, I'm a Christian. I don't do that. That would actually be sinful. See the 10 Commandments.
Or I used to. I've repented.
I used to do that. I've repented, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Now, you'd be perfectly within your rights. What the question is assuming is that right now, like, there is just a rampant and unchecked wave of fatherless, bitter-hearted, disaffected, basement-dwelling, incel young men who just like their whole heart is consumed with the hatred of
and envy.
All non-whites.
Tons of envy.
And they're full of these.
So you can smell the envy.
And
crackling even. You could hear it.
A lot of the time where I'm seeing the like, show me your show the work, when I actually get down to talking to people, like in our church, we have lots of book groups and men talking, and there's all sorts of contexts where men are talking about all sorts of issues. And of course, like right now in the zeitgeist, there's a lot of conversations about race and nationalism and liberal democracy and World War II and like Jewish communism and the extent. And there's like, we're a church full of men who are interested in stuff. There's lots of these conversations. Sit in on any of those conversations. You know what you won't find? Like I haven't found yet a case where I had to take someone aside and say, brother, you are clearly consumed with bitterness. You're blaming all of your problems on this ethereal cabal of et cetera, and you are consumed with hatred and envy. What I've actually found are lots of sober conversations that are like people trying to get to the historic, political, social truth and how to live in light of today. And around very controversial questions, and a lot of disagreement in that 100%. Like in our church, within our church, we went through, and for our men's book group, one of the things we did was read Stephen Wolf's Case for Christian Nationalism, and the camp is split. Yeah, within the men in our church, and guess what? We didn't anathematize each other, and we're all still really good friends. It's possible. Yeah, you don't have to be autistic about everything. Absolutely. And some guys that are like very strongly like nationalism is the way to go. Liberal democracy was a globalist, communist like play, and there's all these issues with it. Isn't it clear? And then other guys who are like, I'm skeptical of the nationalism thing. I think that actually the American experiment, it was infiltrated by subversives, but it fundamentally, there's a lot of good there, and it's a great system that we should continue to rescue today. And constitutionalism, like these are complicated, genuinely difficult debates. Anybody who tries to simplify them down, and this bothers me on both sides, to if you disagree with me, you're an idiot and not a Christian. Yeah. Like that's just not the case, guys. Yeah. Like, and that is spiritual and intellectual immaturity. Yeah, spiritual deadness. It just shows like it's especially intellectual immaturity. Yeah. Because you're not reasoning at that point. You're actually just blustering. So to beat that question to death.
All right. How about a theological question? Oh, it's your turn though.
No. Go for it.
We have a theological question.
Question.
See, I didn't even have one.
So. Postmillennialism. Okay.
Oh, I love this question. I think I know what you're going to ask.
If the postmillennialist position is wrong, what are the implications to how you live now? Sinful, greedy, sinfully living with wrong purpose, any massive implications at all, or just being wrong on a doctrinal position like so many are on so many topics?
I was wrong about the question. I thought it was going to be the AI one, but which is also a good one. Maybe we can get to it.
We'll get to, I think that's perfect bridge for the next one.
Great question.
So what if the post-mill position is wrong? How would you live differently?
Yeah. So like what would the implications be? Briefly, it's wrong to be wrong. It's not good. So you don't just want to be like, oh, it would change nothing. There's no implications. There's almost always going to be an implication for being wrong, for confessing something false. We want to be correct and in accord with truth, recognizing that in our current state, there are issues with about which you might be able to have degrees of confidence, but not certainty, even with respect to the biblical data, et cetera. So I would say, first of all, there is going to be something that is off somewhere when you're wrong about something, even if it's tiny and minute. When it comes to like how I live my life, what does postmillennialism have to do with it? Postmillennialism is not the most driving factor of how I live my life in terms of family, personal piety, evangelism, church practice, church order. People make this mistake a lot of the time, even politically. They think that postmillennialism is what entails Christian nationalism or some other political system. It doesn't. The biggest thing that postmillennialism does for me practically is it makes me very hopeful. I have a lot of hope when I consider the future in the face of the unbelief of the nations. I look and I pray this way. It affects how I pray. It affects how I preach when I'm talking about these issues. It doesn't affect how I educate my children. It doesn't affect how I view my duties in marriage. Those derive from other doctrines. And I think that's an important distinction to make. I'll leave it there because I'm sure Ben has some things to add. But
yeah, I think
and you too.
The question doesn't necessitate that a other known eschatological position is correct. So it's not saying if postmillennialism is proven wrong and you are then therefore this thing. So I would not become a dispensationalist. I wouldn't become a premillennialist, and jury'd be out on amillennialism. And it also doesn't assume, the question doesn't assume that I never knew about postmillennialism. So I think these are important things.
Yeah.
Reason being is because it was through learning from other ministers about postmillennialism that I was exposed to other doctrines that are only adjacently related to it, like the doctrine of vocation, for example, and the doctrine of the nations and things like that. So I actually think that it would change nothing about how I live my everyday life.
Yeah, it's just not the doctrine from which the practical Christian living questions arise.
The only thing it would change is I wouldn't be nearly as confident as I am today that Utah will someday be a Christian state. That would literally be the only thing that it changes.
Because the thing where like postmillennialism fundamentally is a conviction about
when Christ will return.
Yeah, the success of our obedience to the command. It doesn't change the command. So whether you're premillennial, amillennial, postmillennial, historically postmillennial, or like some of the more modern versions, that doesn't change that all of us would agree we should be discipling the nations,
our children.
We disagree about what that entails, but those actually even derive from other doctrines. Like
we're in the world, but we're not of the world. So we're still building institutions. We're still calling people to repent, calling nations to like. Postmillennialism means that we believe Christ will return after the millennial reign. That's what it means.
Yep.
So it's literally a doctrine that defines when you believe the bodily return of Christ in glory will come in reference to the millennial reign. And so because that's actually the doctrine, you can talk about implications all day, but those implications are related to other doctrines. They're not contained in postmillennialism like a hermetic seal. And so for that reason, it would literally change nothing about how I live my life.
The only thing I would add to that definition is that it also entails the successful evangelism of the world. But even amillennials believe that Christ returns after the millennial as well.
Right. But even then, like, and you can see this with amillennials who some of them are more or less hopeful. It's an implication of the doctrine. It's not like a necessary part of it.
I think that postmillennialism isn't postmillennialism if you don't believe. Like the thing that distinguishes amillennialism from postmillennialism is the successful evangelism of the nations.
Well, see, that's where you get into a functional similarity between modern postmillennialism and amillennialism, because amillennials believe that Christ is reigning right now from heaven,
millennium.
And there's a spectrum of how visible that spiritual reign is on the earth. But then the typical postmillennial position would be that Christ actually reigns from heaven on the earth for a literal 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That we could be in now or we may not be in now. We actually don't know. We could judge by the fruit and make a judgment. But it doesn't, and so therefore, when that millennial reign is going on, yes, okay, I get to your point. Like, yes, it will mean that it's the golden age of the church on the earth, so it will be successful. But it doesn't have to be successful right now for postmillennialism.
Not today, no.
And in fact, it doesn't have to be successful for the next 30,000 years.
Right.
And it could still be a postmillennial. Postmillennialism could still be true. And classical postmillennialism.
The distinction that I want to make is that you have the two main forms of postmillennialism. One shares the timeline with amillennialism.
Yeah.
In this, and this would be the view that I hold, that the millennium is not a literal 1,000 years,
Right.
but it actually begins with the enthronement of Christ and continues. And that in that period, Christ will return after the nations have been converted. Historic, older versions of postmillennialism would affirm that the millennium will be, oftentimes a literal 1,000 years, and it will begin at a point of a kind of golden age when the nations have been converted, and then Christ reigns on earth through his people for 1,000 years. Then he returns. But the distinction is really like genuinely, amillennialism doesn't hold. There's no version of postmillennialism that is actually what people mean by postmillennialism that doesn't entail the conversion of the nations.
Yeah.
Whether that's 90%, 50%, whatever. There might be disagreement about scope, but all of them, that's kind of it's like an essential component.
Implied in the doctrine, but it's a good and necessary implication. So it's essentially yoked to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's there. But you're right. It doesn't change how people often who are not postmillennialist assume that a lot of our practical piety or social, political doctrines derive from postmillennialism.
Yeah.
When they actually don't, they just don't. I would say that a dispensationalist, this isn't hypothetical, it commonly happened, that dispensationalists made very real practical decisions about their life that were based on the assumption that sometimes Christ is going to return this decade or by a specific year, or that has happened several times. It's not necessary to dispensationalism, to be clear. It just has happened frequently. Yeah. And that, I think, can be problematic.
It's a correlation.
Yeah. Look, guys. We're not
what about
saying
you, Dan?
That you believe that.
Yeah, it's really difficult to deal in this way because, I understand, Brian, what you said about how postmillennialism isn't like the driving factor behind all of our theological motivations.
No.
But I think what postmillennialism did, from my perspective, is that it's actually more like a zeal meter. Mm-hmm. Like it cranked up zeal way high on a lot of these different biblical commands. Now, postmillennialism isn't the driver for the biblical commands, but it actually did drive the zeal for a lot of these biblical commands. Like, just the way I think, the way I'm wired, I just think very long term. So when I'm making investments and things like that, I'm not thinking about the stuff that I can get or my retirement. I'm thinking about generationally, enabling my sons to be great patriarchs to 1,000 generations. Yeah. What can I do for my generations to set them up for success? It's still, postmillennialism isn't the command, but it is informing the obedience to the command through zeal. So it's difficult for me to actually imagine, like you said, Ben, which theological conviction would I have as far as my eschatology is concerned, and how would that affect my thinking? It's actually really difficult to even put myself in that position.
Yeah.
Because it's just flavored so much of the way that I think.
I'm kind of assuming that with this question, that I would still know all that I know now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I wouldn't be forced into not knowing what I know now and adopting a eschatological position that I don't currently hold. Which would mean that basically I'd be in this limbo state of
pan-millennialism, and it pans out in the end.
I would basically be in this limbo state of saying postmillennialism's wrong, but I don't know what I am now. But that actually doesn't change my day-to-day partly because of how post-mill helped informed my zeal for certain things.
Yes. I think it was a trainer of zeal.
Yeah.
Is primarily the influence that postmillennialism has had on a day-to-day life. Because it's not like I sit around and just think post-millennial, golden age thoughts all day long, right?
It's a sauce.
It is the sauce.
It's not the meat, it's the sauce.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like,
and it is a sauce.
It's like that cheese whiz sauce on a Philly cheesesteak.
Oh man.
Like it's really good.
Sure.
Speaking of, I could do a Philly cheesesteak.
All right. Do you guys have any? I have more questions. You have questions that you've pulled up here. What do we got?
Oh, one of them was good. How do you leave a church well when there hasn't been some big drama or anything? There's just, you disagree. You feel as though you disagree with enough of the teaching to say there's a better option for my family where there's more like-mindedness. How do you go about leaving that church well? Or do you even go about leaving that church well? I thought it was a good question.
What do you think, Dan?
Well, if this is assuming that there is a church that matches your convictions better, that's, an option. First step is that if you're a member in the church that you're currently dissatisfied with, or just have theological differences, it doesn't mean that you actually despise them or anything like that. The first step is just to talk to them and just say is there any way that we can be at peace? These are my theological convictions, or these are my convictions, whatever they may be. There's such a whole scope within that because some people, some members of a church are like, I just cannot stand being at a church that, would only sing psalms or that,
or they wouldn't only.
Something like that is just my conscience is pricked. There's no way I can live peaceably at a church like this. And beside, I've got 15 other things that really bother me about you people. And they're just really unreasonable and pedantic. And you have to be aware, not to be that person.
Yeah.
That you actually have to show Christian charity. But that being said, the first step is to actually just talk to your elders because they're shepherding your souls. They have to give an account to God for the state of your souls. And so that would be the first step. And then the second would be to talk to the church that you would be considering transferring to, and then working with those two church bodies to actually, the elders of both churches, to actually facilitate some sort of transfer of membership.
Yeah, showing courtesy to both.
Absolutely, yeah. And being charitable and leaving peacefully and to not make some big scene.
Yeah.
The other thing is that's a temptation, is that when somebody is dissatisfied, say I just don't prefer the preaching, or there's these theological things that really bother me. It doesn't seem like a good enough reason to leave. So I have to find some disqualifying sin and absolutely blast this church in order to make sure that these elders aren't qualified to be elders. Yeah. I don't recognize them as true shepherds. And so they can't do anything to me because this isn't a true church. Over something that was actually not that big a deal, and you let bitterness grow and you had to invent something. And so you found something because lo and behold, everybody sins, even ministers of the word, they sin. And so that's another correlating temptation that people have. Don't do that. Yeah. That's actually really bad. And so I will just say it's best to be direct and honest with your elders in the beginning. And don't give an opportunity of roots of bitterness to grow. Do not talk to other people about this. This is not an opportunity to gossip as I have some concerns about the elders of the church or these theological things. Just talk to the ministers.
Yeah.
And then, go through those steps that I described. I think that's probably the most vanilla, way that you could go through this without knowing any particulars.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I agree with all that.
Man. Well, clearly my question was the best. Because we talked about it for the least amount of time.
Well, because I answered it. Of course it was the best.
There you go.
What about this one, boys?
The AI one?
Well, that one next.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Do you have that one or something? Remember it?
You've poured your heart and soul into building your business. LivingStones Studio wants to help you communicate that visually and leave a lasting impression on your customers. With over a decade of experience crafting high-converting websites, logos, marketing, and more, LivingStones understands the importance of first impressions. Leave behind cookie-cutter templates and build with cathedral-style aspirations, like living stones, crafting lasting beauty at every turn. LivingStones Studio offers strategic design solutions to help you grow your business, communicate your values, and stand out with a timeless brand. Learn more at livingstones.studio or contact Rob Hewitt directly at rob@livingstones.studio for a free consultation.
All right, man, time to step up. Ever wondered how your hunting skills measure up against the grit and determination of the mountain men who shaped history? Here's your chance to find out. Muzzleloaders.com is your gateway to raw, unfiltered thrill of the hunt. A test of skill where every shot counts and every moment demands your best. They've got it all from vintage flintlocks that transport you straight to the frontier to cutting-edge inline muzzleloaders built for deadly accuracy. This isn't just hunting, it's a call to mastery and a chance to follow in the footsteps of those who carved out a living on the rugged American frontier. Become part of that legacy today. Use the code KINGSHALL at checkout and claim 10% off your first order. That's KINGSHALL, all caps, no spaces. Visit muzzleloaders.com now and take the first step towards your next epic adventure. That's muzzle-loaders.com.
If you own a business, then cybersecurity has to be a top priority for you. But who can you trust to keep your business safe in this modern world? Enter Armored Haven, a Christian cybersecurity company committed to providing the utmost service to its customers. Whether your business operates on Microsoft, Google, Dropbox, or some other cloud-based system, Armored Haven will protect it. Be it emails, networks, mobile devices, and more, all of it is safe behind the iron curtain of Armored Haven. So visit armoredhaven.com/KingsHall to receive 3 months of free monitoring with any new service agreement. Armored Haven. Stop the bad nerds by calling in the good nerds.
Kings, whether you're lighting up at the end of the day or enjoying camaraderie over a smoke, level up with Rooted Pines Homestead Cigar and Whiskey Tray. This family economy makes natural wooden goods and herbal remedies. So ditch the big box stores and further Christendom when you buy from Rooted Pines Homestead. Visit rootedpineshomestead.com and use code KINGS, that's KINGS, at checkout for 10% off your entire order. And grab something for the missus and children while you're there.
Postmillennialists often talk about creating generational wealth, but where do you even begin to turn that vision into reality? Stonecrop Wealth Advisors is here to guide you. They'll demystify the wealth building process and equip you with the strategies needed to secure a lasting legacy for future generations. As fee-only investment advisors, Stonecrop is unwavering in its fiduciary commitment to act in your best interest. That means no commissions, no hidden agendas, just a dedication to serving you. Ready to plant seeds that bear fruit for generations? Visit stonecropadvisors.com/KingsHall. Investment advisory services offered through Stonecrop Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission.
How do you raise your sons and daughters in a future?
I got it right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that one, and then I have another one.
Okay. Hey, how do you raise your sons and daughters for the future where AI and robotics have replaced most household duties and professions? What types of things should fathers be thinking about and preparing their kids for in order to lead and be good stewards in the future? He gives an example. Let's say Tesla's Optimus is $300 a month and can do all the household tasks. Mm-hmm. Do we then become Luddites? Or do we integrate robots somehow into our home economy and business economy?
One initial thought is that has been rolling around my mind is that we can't underestimate how important this shift will likely be. Mm-hmm. It will probably have profound effects on the economy.
Yes.
So we really should be thinking about this. We can't just have people that were around for the beginning of the automobile or people that were around for the Industrial Revolution that was powered by coal. They didn't all see this is really going to make this big of a difference. And it did, changed everything. And in our world, the change accelerates. It doesn't take a few decades. Some of these things might take a decade. You know, the gap from 2022 to 2032 could be fairly significant in a lot of these things. So that's the first step practically is you should be thinking about it. I think you can't
just ignore it.
Yeah.
I will say this. Okay, so I asked AI, how many jobs will AI replace by the year 2030? It quotes Goldman Sachs in a 2023 article. Mm-hmm. So this is old. It could replace up to 25%.
Whoa.
of jobs in the U.S. And this is something that I've actually been paying attention to as I invest in different companies and things like that, including Tesla. And, and they might even be merging with XAI, which is Grok and stuff like that. Anyway, beside the point, they're talking like tens of millions of jobs across the U.S. That could actually be replaced by AI. And then if you introduce robotics, which the advances in robotics are actually tremendous. Yes, to just piggyback on your earlier point, Brian, it is tempting to underestimate how many jobs that AI and robotics can actually replace. This is already happening. There are companies that are laying off major percentages of their workforce because AI tools are so useful. So then, like, how do you prepare your sons and daughters for that? One thing that Pastor Sauvé here has mentioned actually in our school board meetings is on the importance of teaching our children how to use tools like AI. And that might make people kind of cringe a little bit because it's the unknown, it's kind of fearful. Let's just do just an example. If you were to go back in time, it's, the year 2000, and you were describing to people what the internet would be, cell phones would be, things like that. What do you think the reaction would be for those people? I'm pretty sure I had a corded phone or maybe a cordless phone, home phone in the year 2000. I was 16 years old in 2000, like Y2K. You don't even remember that.
I was 5.
You were 5 years old. Yeah.
I remember I was in Montana.
Yeah.
We waited till midnight.
You were like 9.
You don't need books anymore. Yeah. You can just search anything you want. Yep. Schools will be irrelevant because you can just learn on YouTube. The whole telephone world, telecommunications world will be gone. It'll all be on cell phones now. You can carry a computer in your pocket that can tell you anything about anything you want to know. Yeah. Like, how is that actually going to change the world? Well, it ended up changing the world dramatically. You now have cars that can drive you.
Yeah.
MapQuest
doesn't even exist anymore.
MapQuest doesn't. Yeah, that's right.
I used to print out MapQuest.
RIP to MapQuest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did change the economy dramatically. I mean, if you just look at the S&P, I bet the top 5 companies are all internet-based businesses, right? Like primarily digital footprint businesses. Yep. So it does change everything. But so what is your reaction to it? Do you reject it and become a Luddite? Because that was a temptation. Like also giving these year 2000 people or earlier, by the way, internet pornography is a huge problem and it's going to be everywhere. And you carry a brothel in your pocket, and so the temptation is like, well, that we can't have anything to do with that. Absolutely not. It's absolutely wicked and evil. Can't have anything to do with the internet, with cell phones, nothing like that. And so become a Luddite. And I don't think that's the answer. It is something that you have to learn to use and learn to use righteously. And so the question should be, what are the opportunities that present themselves in the future if robotics and if AI replaces a lot of, essentially the way that I look at it, working in the white collar world for a while in a cubicle, there was one point in which I distinctly remember, I was like, I'm a white collar factory worker, is kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
Going in my cubicle, doing data entry and things like that. Like, this is assembly line work with white collar wrappings. Okay, so those jobs will be gone. What are the opportunities that exist? And I think the blue collar world is definitely one of the major opportunities that exist, as well as being able to work with robotics, being able to work in AI. But there's limitations to everything. Like the internet can't do everything. We still publish books, right?
Yeah.
We still do things like that.
People still want people things.
They still want people things. Yes. And I think actually with the knowledge that AI is able to reproduce, eventually you have to think that it's not original ideas. It's a compilation of ideas that have existed. Knowledge work will become even more important as people rely on old old work that's been done before. And so you still are going to need great minds that actually are able to think through very difficult issues in the future. So there's still tons of opportunity, I think, that exist in the future, but I don't think being a Luddite is actually the answer.
Yeah. I think one, like, it'll be annoying and difficult. It'll be a hard growing pain, but probably good overall, is that I do think it'll eventually get people out of this mindset, this boomer mindset of like, my kid needs to go to college and then they'll be set. And they need to get all this student debt, but then they'll be set because they're going to get a good job because they went to college. No, a lot of AI is going to replace any job that you might get from many, many degrees that you could attain in college. So that's good. Maybe it'll kind of cut us out of that funk. One thing on the ladies' side that I was just thinking through, his example is like, what if a housemaid robot is able for $300 a month to do all of the household chores like excellently? I mean, the house is immaculately kept. Well, that's not unlawful. I mean, Paul gives credence to the category of having household servants in the New Testament. And people had household servants if they were elites or even like middle elites for a lot of human history. And that's fine. So like, yeah, I mean, if you can afford it and you want a household servant that's a robot, like get the household servant that's a robot. That doesn't mean that your wife is now useless. That doesn't mean that she doesn't, or that she now gets to like twiddle her thumbs all day and not know how to do anything and have nothing to do. She can just get fat and drink wine and watch Gilmore Girls. No, she still has to be a woman. She still has to run the home economy. She still has to manage the children. She has to do all these things. So I don't think the knee-jerk reaction to fear is good. And I don't think the knee-jerk reaction to rejecting is good, but I also don't think the wholesale adopting of it is good either. I think that you have to approach it with wisdom and recognize that since AI actually is not intelligent, like definitionally, it is not intelligence. No. You can't assume in your response that it is intelligence one way or the other. So you have to think through it.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, that's very important. We need to become experts in relentlessly telling the truth about what AI is and is not. AI cannot know anything. AI is not an intelligence. AI does not have a soul. All of these things are, again,
it has no will.
The Chinese room experiment, if you just want to look up why a computer or a neural network isn't the same thing as a person, just look up the Chinese room experiment. I don't think it's been adequately refuted. And you could look at Parker's Pence's his YouTube channel. He interviews AI philosophers. I think C.R. Wiley is working on some of this. So that's one thing. To prepare our children, we need to make sure that they don't blur the line like many people will do about what an AI is, because many evils will follow from people not understanding that. Two, I believe in punctuated Ludditism when it comes to raising our children. And what I mean by that is that we need to not allow them to experience or be introduced to the regular routine part of life practice of a lot of technologies until a certain age. So I would say children should not have a social media before they are men and women. Mm-hmm. They just shouldn't have them. It's not going to be helpful. It will be an unnecessary distraction. I would say children should not make it their regular practice to use AI tools in their routine everyday tasks when they're in their formative years in school, things like that. What Dan said, I believe children need to learn how to use it in the same way that, like, I had a typing class in school. I learned typing at school, in my public school. And kids need to learn, they should stay abreast of what's happening culturally.
Typing was so hard for me.
It's gotta be.
Because of my disability.
Your disability. So they need to learn it as a tool, but they also need to be protected from it for a long formative period of time, which is what I mean by punctuated Ludditism. Like there's a period where they don't, and then to some measure degree, we want to give them the tools of self-mastery, because one of the things that can happen with AI is AI is a tool. Tools are not neutral. Tools shape us. The tools we pick up and use, they actually aren't just neutral implements in our hands. They affect us. Mm-hmm. So people who immediately wholesale adopt AI to start replacing as much of their life as possible are being shaped by that into a less human thing. Because AI purports to write for you, think for you, plan for you, research for you, do everything for you. That's extremely dangerous when we are asking something to do for us fundamental aspects of what it is to be human. Think, speak, reason. So a wise man who has self-mastery and maturity can use a tool in a way that makes him more human or more virtuously human. But an unwise person can be taken in by a tool in a way that makes them less human. Social media is a great example. In the hands of a wise man, social media can be a tremendous blessing to him and to others. In the hands of a fool, social media will shape you to its ends. It will make you think in unsophisticated, short, blurby kind of ways. Mm-hmm. It will interrupt your ability for sustained thinking and reasoning. So we need to make sure that we're doing something on a level like the Amish do, where the Amish, they make sure that at the center of their project is maintaining their culture, people, humanity. That's the center of what they're doing to their own principles and ends, and I don't agree with all of those. We need to have a similar mindset. I'm not saying about Ludditism, but I'm saying about the preservation of humanity and culture and creating human beings who can be human beings excellently and think well and reason and do all of these things. So when I'm thinking of preparing my children, that's what it is. I want them to know what it is to read books, not to go have the illusion of reading books by getting AI to summarize them in 3 paragraphs.
Yeah. So to that point, I typed into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT knows all of my theological convictions, personal convictions, and all because I put it in there. And I said, keeping my convictions in mind, how can I effectively raise my sons to be productive members of society in an age where AI could potentially take over many opportunities in the job market? And these are the principles that spit out. And it's actually like pretty funny that I'm using AI to do this. But to your point about using it as a tool, you're shaping men before shaping workers. So you're getting into the anthropology. You're teaching your sons and daughters what people are and what they are as little men and little women who will be big someday. So you're teaching responsibility, actual skills, hands-on skills, stewardship of time, discipline with screen usage and technology. You're catechizing them into the faith from a very early age. Whether you're farming, programming, or managing people, they should see it as doing it to the glory of God. You're instilling anti-fragility, exposing them to risk, letting them fail, letting them skin their knees, letting them lead small ventures, even if it's the oldest kid in a group of kids leading the construction of a fort. Mm-hmm. You're teaching them physical skills. You're encouraging mastery over trends. Classical education, it recommends classical education is a great model for this. You are developing entrepreneurial thinking. It says AI will automate jobs, but not value creation. So you're teaching them to create value in the society wherein they exist, forming deep real-world relationships, rooting them in a thick church life, teaching them to see AI as a tool that they master, not something that masters them. And then it gives all these like ways to do this, like practical tips. And I thought that was really interesting. That now, granted, it has all of my kind of presuppositions fed to it, and so once again, AI is not thinking and it's not willing. It's basing this response off of what I believe, but it gives you, when it knows your convictions, it can read the Bible very fast, and it knows how, the tradition that you subscribe to. It can actually give you helpful things that you can then take and you can run with in your life to say, well, these are the principles that I'm then going to operate by, or some of them, and you tweak whatever, such that my child has a punctuated Luddite period, but when they come into the world, and they will be in the world, they actually know how to operate in a way that sets them above the class of people that are willing to give over their humanity to this thing that's not a human.
Right.
So it's actually an opportunity for sons and daughters to grow up into elites, Christian elites, in a world that's not going to know what a human being even is anymore. Right. It's not going to know how to add value to the society that you live in. And so that's actually a great opportunity for the gospel to then propagate and change hearts and nations.
I want to add something as well to this that just came to mind, because I'm thinking about this question of Ludditism. I'm thinking of the Amish. I'm thinking of some of these questions. I'm very sympathetic to the person who says, I'm actually interested in creating a culture, not just me, but my family and the people around us, where we intentionally don't use a lot of AI or any at all. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of that. Maybe they would say I wouldn't get the household robot. Maybe they'd say I'm not going to do all this stuff. And I'm thinking in terms of the principles, and I want to steelman and defend that and say that actually we need Christians to do some work in this area, I think. And we're at an infancy of our thinking about some of these things. I'll give you an example. If it was possible to replace, through a technology, all eating, so you could just take a pill and it would meet every nutritional need you had, and it would also produce a brief hallucination that gave you the satisfaction of eating food. Should Christians adopt that technology wholesale? Is that a good idea? I'm actually not trying to answer that right now. I'm just saying we can think of situations where we would rightly say that technology is actually bad.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
Some innovations should be rejected outright.
There's something about that is militating against what God created a human being to be and to do. So I do want us to think carefully and craftily and cunningly about technological advance in general, and not just go, oh, it's all postmillennialism.
Yeah.
It's all just like, woo, postmillennial hope. Like, look, Palantir, and they've given, whoa. Like, hang on. There are things that make us human that we could theoretically come up with technological ways to solve, that maybe in solving them, we would destroy ourselves or harm ourselves significantly. Could I invent a technology that allowed me to never need to speak because I could just telepathically communicate? Like, there's all sorts of technological supposals that we could do where all of us would stop for a second and go, something about that seems really off.
Yeah.
And I do think we need to just be careful.
Yeah, it's worth always keeping in mind that a lot of the people that are really pushing this technology are really into transhumanism and actually turning humanity into something quote unquote more than it is, which is to say less than it is. Yeah. And so, yeah, like to show my cards, when it comes to lab grown meat, I'm a Luddite.
Yeah, I'm just not.
That's not a post-millennial innovation. That's garbage, and it should burn in hell. And I hate lab grown meat. So yeah.
Yeah, there's some things, and it's genuinely like, it's hard to live in a time. You think about, we look back on the Industrial Revolution, and we can identify, and we've done it on the King's Hall, 5, 10, 15 aspects of the Industrial Revolution that led to system and network effects that were deleterious, that harmed society and the social fabric in ways that are still unfolding, like a slow motion car wreck, to the family, to masculinity, femininity, the duties, the things that made us human. And you can't roll back and say that we're now going to return to I'm not saying the romantics were right and we should return to a state Rousseau was right and let's go to a noble savage state. I'm not saying that. But it actually is difficult to think clearly and prophetically about the future when you're in the early stages of a paradigm changing technological event.
Yeah.
And we are in that.
Yeah. The hope is that man does have the capability with the wisdom of God to know the times as well as he can. Mm-hmm. And the hope that the preacher is right in Ecclesiastes, that there is nothing new under the sun. So like innovation is not creation from nothing. It's not something that is truly, in a classical sense of the word, new. Mm-hmm. And so since we're still in the infancy, like I don't have answers for this, but it does give us hope to say, like with intentional thought, with practice, we can get to the point where we realize that just like everything else in the world, AI is not something truly new, and we can learn to understand the times in a way that maintains righteousness before God and human thriving on the world that God made.
Yeah. I have 2 more questions I'm interested in working through briefly. Is that good with you guys? 2 more?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Dan.
Here's one of them. Is it possible to over-respond to Pride Month? It's something I've been thinking about lately because it seems like for the past couple of years, the pagans really haven't been pushing it as hard, and the majority of mentions of it that I see come from Christians fighting against it. Obviously, it's good to fight these things, but it seems like there comes a point where we're drawing more attention to it than the pagans are, which would be counterproductive. What do you guys think? I don't know if this is a follow-up. I've had pushback on several posts I've made about Pride Month that are like, the sodomites are really nasty and we should, My instinct on this is that you think about the mistake that the Anglo-Saxons made commonly in their early warfare with the Vikings, which is that they didn't understand the principle of pursuit in warfare. So the second that the Vikings would turn on a battle and retreat, they would go, oh, we won, and they would stop. And Alfred learned that no, what you do is you go and you pursue them and you kill every single last one of them, or you imprison them, you capture them. And that's it. You utterly destroy the enemy army until there is no army left. You do not let them retreat and regroup and fortify and all of that. And to me, I think this question illustrates, I'm not intending to insult the questioner. I think it's a decent question that can illustrate a good point. But I think our instinct on the right to ask questions like these and have this instinct is an example of one of the reasons that we have been subjected to the ratcheting effect of the left, where they ratchet up a new thing and then they never go back. They just hold that line and they ratchet you further and further left. And they've won on every major social issue, marriage, sexuality, homosexuality. They've won on pretty much everything in the gay marriage. Like they've won on all of it and they've never given back those victories that they've taken. So what happens is that the left, they've been sprinting for about 5 to 10 years towards sexual insanity. So we went from Obama running in 2008 on no gay marriage, I'm not for gay marriage, Barack Obama, to we are now going to sell at Target pants, underwear for transgender children that want to stuff and pretend like they're the opposite sex, and bras. And we have, we're going to give harmful chemical castrating hormone treatments to children. Mm-hmm. Like that happened in less than 15 years, that transition. They sprinted leftward. And what we've got now is cultural gay fatigue, where even normies are like sick of it. Like I'm sick of men winning women's sports competitions, the low hanging fruit stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sick of trannies in bathrooms, leering at children, men dressed as women who are just perverted sex fiends. I'm sick of it. We've got gay fatigue culturally. So there's this cultural moment where a lot of companies are kind of, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do as much Pride Month stuff as I did 2 years ago, and all this, and rightly, a lot of on the right, we're going, we're winning. But my instinct when I see we're winning, kind of, is let's pursue until it's unthinkable that we wouldn't have laws against sodomy in America. Mm-hmm. Like that's where I want to go, which is, are we close to that?
No. I do think it's really important to understand strategically, you're talking tactics, strategy, whatever. If, for example, if it was proposed that Obergefell to the Supreme Court should be overturned, like, do you think that the leftist gay troops would be rallied and you'd see pride parades like year round?
Oh yeah.
Like absolutely.
Yep.
Like it's still there.
They ratcheted there. They're going to hold it.
There's just a false peace right now. And so it's like, I get the instinct like, hey, there's some sort of peace. Let's just leave it alone. Let's not talk about gay stuff at all. It's gross.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. I'm sick of it. So let's just not talk about it at all. I get the instinct.
Yeah,
but it's just a false peace.
Yeah. Conservatives are normal people who like normal human stuff, and liberals are civilization destroying evil lizard people who hate all that is good, true, and beautiful and want to destroy the world. So conservatives, just a lot of them, this is one of our besetting sins, is that we want to be left alone. Mm-hmm. And when we just want to be left alone, do you know what the left does? They go conquer the world. It's like saying, let's ignore the Muslims. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're going to ignore them until your child is a sex slave and you're slaughtered.
Yeah.
Like historically speaking. So we have this besetting sin in the right and in conservative circles of apathy and thinking that the first victory is the war. Oh, Trump gets elected. It's all done. Have we deported 40 million people? Have we won anything yet? Not really.
I was going to say, this is like if England said no more Muslims can come into England.
Yeah.
Would that be victory?
No.
It would be the start.
Could be.
But it wouldn't be the total victory. You'd have to then say, and all the ones that did, you will either recant, confess Christ, and completely assimilate. And even then, there's a question.
Because they did that in Spain and they just lied.
Even then there's a big but really victory would be like, and all the ones that did come in, you're going back.
Bye. Go to Saudi. Go back to Iran.
Silence is not victory. Stopping the advance isn't victory. You have to push completely back and undo all of this work. Even from a cultural standpoint, Anthony Esolen talks about this in Nostalgia, where there's no such thing as a holiday that's not religious. It doesn't exist.
It's in the word.
Even like national holidays, it's not religious in the true sense, but it's mythic. So it's adjacently attached to religion at the very least. And what Pride Month is a religious holiday. And so if you think about it from that perspective, you're like, well, just because they're quiet about it, have they repented? No. And so Boniface cut down the tree. They are not allowed to have that high place anymore.
Right.
And they're going to have it if you just shut up about it and they also shut up about it. The high place is still there.
It's the besetting sin of tolerance.
You have to burn it down completely.
Absolutely. You can't allow any vestige. It's why Saul is rebuked when what is this lowing of cattle? It's for incomplete obedience.
Yeah.
It's incomplete obedience. You cannot do it. It's hatred to your children, it's hatred to your nation. So we need to crucify the instinct that leads us to go like, are we going over the top here in terms of pursuit of total and utter victory? I mean, we've managed to blackpill Elon Musk in 3 months.
Yeah.
From his Doge stuff, where he's like, look, I'm sick of this. You guys I was going to go and cut $1 trillion of spending and you guys you won't do it. You're incorrigible. Can't work inside the system that way. Okay, last question, if you guys are up for it here, is just how do you effectively engage in political or cultural investigation and critique while also building something meaningful and lasting, especially for someone whose career is not podcasting, YouTube, or media creation? Any relevant tips or examples? How do you effectively engage in political, cultural investigation and critique while also... What I'm hearing in the question, maybe you guys don't hear the same thing, but what I'm hearing is... that there can often be a gap between the talky and buildy, where you have a lot of content creation as a career and that sort of thing can be disconnected from building of actual things, and that's bad. And briefly, I would agree with that. One of the things that we do in Ogden that I think is, I wouldn't be interested in doing what we're doing if not for this, is that there's no hypothetical, kind of utopic ideal of let's start with just ideas and then hope that eventually something fruits from them. The thing at the center is the people. It's a church and a community. That is the thing. Mm-hmm. New Christendom Press is a business that exists in a community of people. And the constituent parts of the business are people from that community who talk about things that they do. And we're pastors and we do cultural stuff. And but it's that's the taproot is the community and the people, not the other way around. I'm actually wildly skeptical of talking head content creator type people for whom I can't look and be like, but what have you done?
Yeah, they can't point to an actual body of tangible work.
What have you done? And there's a category for someone who's really an expert in valuable work that is work of the mind and word. That's totally valuable. Tucker Carlson, he contributes to the creation of reality and culture by talking. And it's actually very beneficial and good because God didn't make this utilitarian world where unless you can see the thing you're building like a brick wall, you're not doing anything. Words are important. That's why, God made a world where poetry actually matters, music matters, art matters, media matters, culture matters. All these things matter. But I always want to see the taproot of real humanity behind it. If Tucker was whatever that gay guy recently, you remember he's well-known in conservative circles for writing conservative-y stuff, and then scandal breaks out with the release of a bunch of gay sex tapes. No. This just happened in the media. It's been exploding for 2 weeks.
Dang, I missed that.
Anyway, that guy, I don't care what he wrote.
Yeah.
I literally don't care. I won't read it. Even if everyone's like, no, this is the best. I'd be like, don't care. Because his virtue is anti-virtue. I don't care what he says.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of world, like that's the thing that we need to keep in at the center is that, okay, media is a licit and lawful thing, but it cannot be contrary to, it has to be the outgrowth of virtue and fruitfulness and manhood, and like that actually has to come out of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying there's a lot of talking heads out there that imagine if Dave Ramsey was broke and he has like this podcast on how to be wealthy, to live like no other, and he's just a financial wreck.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, well, why would I trust anything that guy says?
Right.
But there are lots of people who propose to be cultural builders and, you know, have very great insights into the world and into business and into community and people, and they have no evidence of actually doing that themselves. Yeah,
that's one thing. On the other side, I think they were asking too, like, let's say I'm not in media and whatever, how can I fruitfully engage with the conversation?
Yeah, that's kind of how I heard the question.
Yeah, what do you think?
And to them, I would provide the comfort of saying, like, you actually don't have to effectively speak to things that you're not directly involved in. Like, you don't have an obligation to be able to be well-versed in everything.
Right.
There's kind of if to really simplify it, there's an elite class of thinker that or speaker, you know, a Tucker Carlson would be in that class. I think in his area of expertise, Stephen Wolfe would be one of those people. He's like an elite thinker in political philosophy. Mm-hmm. And then there's the popularizer, which is like all of us, where we popularize things. Mm-hmm. We actually aren't really experts in anything that we don't put our hands to and tangibly work on. And then there's the people that are like, all they do is tangibly work on things that aren't really that related to the zeitgeist. And to those people, I would say you should actually just focus on doing what the Lord put in front of you to actually do excellently. And like read books, you know, talk to people, listen to podcasts and stuff like that. But in doing that, don't think that you then must be able to speak effectively to every single thing.
You don't need to start a podcast.
No.
To like be a completed person.
Yeah, to be pushing the plow in the direction, you don't have to be an expert in every single thing. That's just actually not healthy. And it'll end up meaning that you do pretty like shoddy work everywhere else. And so to that, if I'm reading that question right, I would actually tell that guy, like, I would actually not put that much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Read books that you're interested in, listen to podcasts that you're interested in. Like, talk about it with people, be interested. Totally. But you don't have to be an expert. You don't have an obligation before God to speak effectively to everything.
No, it's a dance where it's perfectly fine if you're really interested in a bunch of social and historical and political and theological. If you're really interested in that and you find great joy and satisfaction and like searching out mysteries in that, great, go do that. But don't feel an obligation. Like there's a sense in which everybody feels an obligation on some level to like be a content creator because social media has monetized self-content creation. And by that, I mean, Facebook makes money from people being convinced that they have to do that.
Yeah.
What if you are a content creator and don't want to make content? What about that, for example?
Hypothetically.
The way I think through it is just do your work excellently and you'll stand before kings.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Like you can shape the world by being really excellent at what God called you to do.
To that guy, like, I would say you should see these things, like big ideas, zeitgeist ideas, as leisure.
Yeah,
not as work for you. It should be a leisure thing. Your work is your work. God has put you in that lane. That is your vocation. But in your leisure time, be interested in these things. God has put me in a different lane. He's put, all of us in a different lane. And so we balance it a little bit differently. But just because you listen to people or read people that God has put in that lane of expertise or popularization doesn't mean that you have to then be that.
Yeah. Is it Joseph Pieper who has the book on leisure?
I think so.
That's a good book on the subject of just thinking about the enjoyment of thinking and reading and recreating, like the very human enjoyment of not always working and producing. Mm-hmm. One of the big pitfalls of our culture today is that we actually have turned everything into a side hustle and a business. And in many ways, we've destroyed people's ability to just enjoy something.
Yeah.
Like within 10 minutes of somebody learning golf, they're like, maybe I could be a YouTube golf content creator.
Like literally,
and I'm like,
all of us have said that.
we've all said it. And I'm
Except
like,
Dan.
And I'm like, guys, just play golf and enjoy it.
Oh, woodworking.
You don't have to sell it.
I started a woodworking business. Shouldn't have done that. Should have just been a leisure activity that I do it. Like,
Dude, but God bless the broken road that led me straight to you.
dude, so true. Hey, that is a great Rascal Flatts deep cut. Like if you're a woman who's into making soap for your family, you actually don't have to make that into a business.
You don't have to. You can if you want your husband,
Yeah, you
whatever.
can.
But like, we don't have to side hustleize and monetize everything.
Yeah, some things can just be, I enjoy doing this for me and for my people.
Yeah, like literally everything that we do here, I was doing already and wanted to do, and I like doing it.
Yeah.
And I would do it even if nobody, like even if it didn't happen to also be my job, I would be doing pretty much 90% of the same things.
Yeah, you'd still be making music.
I like doing
Even if it's
it.
just for your kids.
I enjoy it. Ask my wife. I can't stop making music.
I can't stop singing butt rock songs.
Yeah.
To my wife.
He can't stop.
What rock?
Butt rock is like Hinder, Creed,
Butt?
Nickel. Yeah, butt rock.
Like your bottom.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just
I've never
made
heard this
Martina
term
cry.
before.
Really?
Butt rock. Like, well, I just heard
The news
the news today.
coming from the lips of an angel.
You know, the side hustle thing is really interesting actually, because, a few years ago, that's how I was thinking through everything as like the potential for a side hustle. Part of it is because of the desperation for economic opportunity,
Yeah.
To produce extra income. And the more I explored some of these opportunities, the more I realized that leisure is actually really important. So for example, I like to garden. I like to grow things. I like to have fruit trees, all of that. And you're like, I could actually turn this into a little vegetable stand, fruit stand by the road, sell subscriptions, do something like that, do some farming, because I produce a astronomical amount of food. Just the way that God designed plants, you plant a small seed and you get like thousands of tomatoes from it. You know, it's just the way that God made vegetables and fruits and things like that. And then I started doing the math after that, and I realized this is not a sustainable side hustle. How about I just grow a bunch of food, and if I have extra, I give people in the church that need it a big box, and they go out into my garden and they can pick as much as they want.
Yeah.
And then they've got lots
And
of
it helps
vegetables.
you.
Yeah.
And it helps me. Yeah.
you don't have to pick the
No,
rotten
it's
fruit
selfish. Don't hear this as being like very charitable.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
I didn't have to pick it.
Yeah.
They got it. It's a win-win
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
why
thing.
I invite people
And
to mow my lawn.
No, but having things that are like, no, I do this because I want to do it.
Yeah.
And because I enjoy it and I want other people to enjoy it as well,
Yeah.
there you go. That's the category now. I'm not thinking through that as a side hustle anymore because it just ruins it. When you make leisure into work, it's no longer leisure. It's
not.
Yeah.
I mean, because one of my biggest dreams when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pro bass fisherman. Okay.
Okay, actually, I was going to make fun of your dream, but that's actually attainable.
Didn't we all?
Well, so I fished my first tournament when I was a senior in high school. I hated it. I hated it. I was so anxious the whole time because you've got a clock. You've got to fish as hard as you can. There's no like, I'm going to sit down and eat a sandwich now. Like I had to catch the next fish. And it just completely ruined it for me.
Yeah.
And I realized that, no, I do not want to be a pro bass fisherman. I would have been a terrible pro bass fisherman anyway.
You just like
But
fishing.
I like fishing.
And it ruined all the good things about fishing.
Yes, the things that I didn't realize that I actually enjoyed about it. Like, for example, making soap because you just love your family and you want them to have like something that's not full of chemicals and it smells nice. And you did it yourself and you made it because you enjoy making it.
Yeah.
And you could buy it. Like you could buy it from someone else on Etsy.
Indigo Sundry Soap.
.com/HanukkahCosmos.
Yeah, you could do something like that. But you just decided, you know what? I want to do this because I'm interested in it. Like just be free to be interested in something.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Love it. Love it. Well, guys, great conversation. Wow. You're both so handsome. It was so much fun. I just want to say thanks for being here.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric,
We
for
enjoyed
leaving and going to California for a few weeks.
To, let Ben sit in here. That was, it was a good time. And we hope that you guys all had a great time at the New Christian Press conference. We do have tickets out and available right now for next year. So One of the things that we did this year that we added for the first time is a family pass to just make it A, cheaper, and B, more simple if you want to come as a family. So the family pass works that you can literally buy one ticket and you and your children can come.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole thing. You don't have to buy like 2 adult tickets, which age categories of kids are this ticket or that ticket. It lowers the cost for like 98% of families that come significantly to just come show up. So the big thing with that, as soon as you think you're going to come, pick up your tickets. It helps us plan and know what venue we need to be in. If we have another 500 people next year, changes the venue we need to be in. So earlier you sign up, the better to help us plan. And also we have big price breaks early as well because of that, to help us get ahead on things and just get all of our logistics in place. So, but we loved hanging out with all of you guys. I think it hasn't happened yet. I'm assuming we did. Unless we didn't.
We loved hanging out with each other.
That's true.
Are you talking? Yeah.
That's what
we loved that.
I do love that. I do it every day for a reason.
Yes.
I mean, it was tolerable, I guess.
All right. I guess I don't speak for everyone.
The most Dan Burkle. But thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next time in the King's Hall.
Great news here at the New Christendom Press Warehouse. Lexi Sauve's book, My Beautiful Wife, Wisdom on Her Tongue, it's in stock and shipping. Look at our team go here. Totally not child labor, an elite team of fulfillment experts getting these books out to you. And what that means is that if you order this book, it's going to be in the mail and to you within like a week or so. Pick up a copy today at newchristendompress.com/wisdom. We're killing it right now. Okay. We're going to keep on dancing.